All right, let's go ahead and just start here. Dustin, you got the first spot here with the quarterbacks. Let's see how you ranked them, discuss, and see where
Yes.
everyone's debating here.
All right. So ranking the quarterbacks, really what I wanted to look at when I was going through all this was like how many touchdowns did each quarterback actually have total touchdowns, rushing and passing? Because we all know rushing quarterbacks tend to do the best unless you're Patrick Mahomes. So
Hmm.
so I'm starting from the top. My number one pick off the board with quarterback should definitely be Patrick Mahomes. 45 total touchdowns, the only quarterback over 5,000 yards last season. That's a no-brainer. Number two and number three are kind of interchangeable based on what everybody else has. Me, I like Jalen Hurts going number two. Counted for like 35 total touchdowns last year. I think he's primed for even more. I mean, he's so young. Like that offense is just sky's the limit for them. And then number three, Josh Allen did have 42 more touchdowns or 42 total touchdowns. So he had 7 more than Hurts. But I don't like the Bills' offense. Can't lie to you. I just don't like it. I don't like how everything's on Allen, and they lost a running back, so whatever. Number
They did.
four, what's
They
up?
did bring in. They brought in. I mean, it's not like a major signing, but they brought in Damian Harris, and there's still, I guess, potential for Dalvin Cook. They're saying to go there and play with his brother. How much playing time he'll get, I don't know, but
Dalton Kincaid as well on that
Yeah.
list.
yeah, good
No,
draft.
I like that. If I mean, I don't see a scenario where Dalvin Cook hurts a team at all, so
Right.
I think that would be wise for them to do that. And if
Other than in the bank.
yeah, yeah. But number four, number five, it's hard to not put Joe Burrow at number four. It really is. 40 total touchdowns, very close to 5,000 yards. The offense, I don't see how it could take a step back. Number five, Lamar Jackson. The very interesting Lamar Jackson this year. Can his knees hold it together for an entire season? He hasn't been able to the last 2 years, but 2019 he was historic. So 20 total touchdowns, even with missing 5 games. He was on pace to have some records again last year. Number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, honestly, is just a crapshoot. If you get stuck with any of these guys at these picks, like you're gonna be fine. But number 5, Justin Herbert just signed a massive contract. He's gonna be vibing with his supporting cast. Hey man, you don't need to win in the playoffs. You just need to have a great set of hair.
Literally a 27-point comeback loss.
Hey,
and
NFL playoffs don't matter at all in fantasy football.
Bro.
That is
No,
facts.
it's a
regular season
That's a
game.
good point right there. That's why we keep you around, not for the looks. Number 7.
50-50.
Well, number 7, someone that I think probably should be a little bit higher. It's just gonna have to see how they work. But Trevor Lawrence, man, 30 total touchdowns with an absolutely insane supporting cast. I don't know if you guys have seen Calvin Ridley on the practice squad this year, but he looks incredible. Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram. Like, if they can figure it out, I mean, that's going to be... He could easily be top 3, top 2. Dare I even say number 1 this year in fantasy football. Number 8, Justin Fields. I don't like Justin Fields. I can't lie to you. I don't like the Bears offense. If he can continue to do what he did last year and not get hurt, good for him. But I don't think he's going to do that. He had 25 total touchdowns last year. The only significant piece they added was DJ Moore. Claypool's already hurt. I saw Mooney. I don't like Justin Fields, but he had a really good year, so it'd be just too disrespectful not to put him in the top 10. Number 9, Deshaun, the massage parlor Watson. He has a great offensive line. Amari Cooper, David Njoku. I mean, their offensive line,
and that's it.
but their offensive line, he looked incredible when he was in Houston. He was incredible. Like, they just can't argue that. So,
but he looked handicapped when he played last year.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
I think a lot of that,
Which
the Houston success was, he had a dynamic back and David Johnson there for a little while. So now he's got a power horse back that is going to carry that team to probably 12 wins this season.
How much of the whole massage deal do you think was in his head though when he came back last year? Because I mean, surely it was just like lingering there.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think anytime you do something wrong, just in general, it's in your head. You're wondering what people are thinking about you, especially in a locker room like that, like an NFL locker room. I feel like You got everyone
Everybody's looking
around
at
you,
you
and they're
like,
like,
"This
bro, you got a problem.
creep."
You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, and they catered his contract last year to the
Mhm.
possibility of him being suspended. So, in all fairness, last year, he got paid like $1 million. He
Yeah.
played like $1 million quarterback. He didn't play
Yeah,
like a $50
that's
million
true.
quarterback.
That's true.
He's
So
got a
if he
pretty good
doesn't
team.
deliver this season, then
Yeah, I would agree
If we're
with
being
that.
honest, he's
probably the
got a
worst trade of all
Mark
time.
Cooper, he's got Nick Chubb, David Njoku. He's got a good cast, and
Mhm.
most of his fantasy production came from taking the ball and running. And you're not going to have a better option to take kind of the eyes off of you than to potentially
Chubb.
hand the ball to Nick Chubb and then take it outside. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still think he could do well. Obviously, my personal thoughts on him aside, I think he could be a good quarterback.
I think
Yeah.
we see more of his legs this season too. I don't think
Agreed.
we've seen much of that last season.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that has to do with him being out of playoff contention, and the risk for the run wasn't worth the reward. I think this year he comes out of the gates running, slinging.
No, I would agree. And like I say, he has a top 5 offensive line. The offensive line in Cleveland has been good for a long time.
Yeah, we
They
know who's
just,
number one offensive line, but
They
Offensive line's good, too.
they just weren't unfortunately being utilized with their former quarterback now in Tampa. But I would trade Baker Mayfield
guy.
100 times out of 100 times, even if it was for John Watson. But moving on from him, number 10, rounding it out. I have this guy a little bit higher than most people did on the projections, Aaron Rodgers. I don't see how you can't have him in your top 10. I really don't. 27 total touchdowns last year with a horrible Green Bay offense. Just he didn't want to be there. He's got a new team, X, Y, and Z. I'll touch on him a little bit later. Kind of want to speed through these other ones here. 11, 12, 13, I have Kirk Cousins. He's been 11, 12, 10 every year. Russell Wilson, Tua Tagovailoa. Not a huge fan of him, but they have elite weapons, so it'd be disrespectful to not have him in the top 15. I think your 10 through 15, obviously, since there's 10 people in our league, usually they're going to be your backups. You really want a good backup. I think Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Tua, Daniel Jones at 14, and then Dak Prescott at 15. He gets the job done. It's not pretty. It's never, wow, Dak had 40 fantasy points, but he could help. So then just kind of to round that out, like the rookies are all a question mark to me. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. Everybody's super high on the athleticism of Richardson, kind of falling into Colts have a great offensive line. They have Jonathan Taylor. Like, he should be able to produce something. So that's probably the only
Pierce,
rookie
Michael
that I would
Pittman.
draft. Yeah, that's the only rookie I would draft personally for a backup. But
None of them are in really great scenarios,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's the difficult part.
And Richardson has to be in the best, right? I mean, the Colts
Well,
offense, I think.
And no quarterback really ever is. I mean, I guess Pat
yeah.
Mahomes was brought into a pretty good situation, but like Deshaun Watson, I mean, he went to the Texans, like we
Yeah.
were saying, and made that team look good, almost beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, but Patty Mahomes. So, yeah, no, I'm
Well,
in
to be
agreement
fair,
with you.
Deshaun Watson probably had some other things on his mind at the
I,
time. so,
Post-game
I would,
massages.
yeah,
I would
he had
ask
something
us-
lined up post game for sure.
I would ask, so with it being, I mean, we're assuming a PPR league.
Mhm.
With those, I mean, maybe just the top 5 you do this for, but where are you seeing those guys go? Like, which round? Are you Patty
Mm.
Mahomes in the first round crazy, or?
I could see that. I could see after probably 9 or 10, I could see somebody taking a Patrick Mahomes, to be honest. I think there's 3 really good running backs, 3 really good wide receivers, a couple more running backs you have a question mark on. Travis Kelce, I think, will go, and then maybe the 10th person snags him. I'm not sure. I personally wouldn't take a quarterback round 1 this year. I think you can get a lot more value. Their ADP, average draft position, hasn't been round 1, I don't think, but that's just my preference. I'm a historic take Carson Wentz in the 10th round type guy. That's what I made my bread and butter on or super early fantasy football leagues. So I tried it with Derek Carr and it didn't work, but we'll see.
With the league now, there's 3, 4, 5 guys every year that are cracking 5K yards, like 5,000 yards throwing. So that, in my opinion, puts more power into the receivers in those early rounds in PPR leagues than it does quarterbacks. I mean,
Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert were obviously Patrick Mahomes I mentioned had over 5K, but Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert
5K last year too.
I think he was close. I don't think he did because I looked it up earlier. But
Look it up.
yeah,
Was it Herbert?
I've seen it on his contract.
Oh, he did.
I will tell you this after we get through it.
Nope, 47-39.
Yep. You know, it's
Just
almost like it
listening
was
to
like
you.
my section. That's crazy.
No, I know.
That's weird.
It was the year before he cracked it.
Fair enough. What's
Just
up, Matt?
listening to your list, though, Dustin, I think that the fact that you have Aaron Rodgers going 10 just shows you how many good quarterbacks there are this year. And last year, I think it was very top heavy. So I
Yeah.
think that if you're drafting a quarterback before round 3, you're losing out on another position, as to where something like a tight end position is a lot more valuable this year. So I would see those quarterbacks falling unless you really just are a fan of one. You know, the guy in the top left wearing the Mahomes jersey right now, maybe a little more biased than others to pick him, but I don't see a need to pick a quarterback in the first 2 rounds this year.
I could see that argument.
I do not pick any Chiefs players ever because every time I have, they've gotten hurt. So never
Take
happening
Mahomes,
again.
number one.
Nope,
Sure.
hell
Also,
no.
I will say this: Josh Allen last year was beating Mahomes before he hurt his elbow, and I know maybe his offensive situation, maybe you don't like that as much, but he was clear in a way number 1 quarterback until he hurt his elbow last year. So I still think he's got to be in that top 2 conversation. I'm okay with Hurts being there. He gets the rushing touchdowns, obviously, but to me, it's still Josh Allen, Mahomes, and then to me, everybody else behind him.
Everybody else.
I think those are 2 that are like super comparable too because their situations are so similar. I mean, Mahomes has the better pass blocking offensive line, but I mean, they both got one guy that they can throw to 100% of the time, and they're going to catch the ball, and they both have no running game. So it's I think they're pretty similar situations.
That's my question as I see John shake his head as he has a giant Pacheco
Now,
crush
Pacheco
right
does
now.
not
But
prove anything.
before we move on from that, I will say I agree with what you said in Josh Allen. But my question is, with what Tim just said, they don't have a running back. So how long? Last year was the first year we saw Josh Allen get hurt. If he keeps up the same level of production with his style of play, will he ever get hurt again? Was this the tip of the iceberg with his injuries? I don't know.
They just lost Hines too.
Yeah, they lost Hines for the year on a jet ski accident. Hello?
I'll say this:
What
he
are you
runs
doing,
recklessly, man. That man is built like no
Yeah,
other.
that's the other thing.
He's Mosley, he was just sitting there.
He's my
and
size.
Someone hit him.
Imagine.
I mean, just some of the shots that he allows himself to take,
can see
though, is
you.
like,
But Josh Allen,
why? He's just like going head first, and I mean, respect to him, but I mean, you got to think it only takes one.
But but to Matt's point, you have to respect him. You have to respect the 42 touchdowns being literally, other than Stephon Diggs, the only thing on that team worth giving a crap about. But so kind of round that out, I have there's a group here. I don't want to spend too much more time on the quarterback. I feel like I'm probably almost over 15 minutes here, but Geno Smith, Kenny Pickett, Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, Love for Green Bay. I lump them all in the same place. You could argue that, Jared Goff was pretty close to 5,000 yards last year too. Out of all of those, that's probably where I would go if I had to take somebody out of that. Would probably be Jared Goff. The Love situation is pretty interesting. In Green Bay, they really haven't added anything, but they are pretty solid with Aaron Jones and a couple other pieces, so we'll see. And then my honorable mention, just because I have to, Desmond Ridder, man. You can hate on him all you want to. Last year was not his fault for us missing the playoffs as Kenyon Drake holds on to the football. We win that game against the Chargers, and we're in the playoffs, so we'll see what happens there. But his offense has Bijan Robinson, who everybody's projecting to be a first-round workhorse. Kenyon Drake, Pitts in an offense that now they're actually going to throw it to him, hopefully, with Marcus Bummiota out of there. That we'll see. But
assuming they have enough time to.
Assuming they have enough time, but he's a little, we'll see. But then real quick, the two that I love is I have at number 5, Lamar Jackson, man. I really feel like he's missed 11 games the last 2 years. We were just talking about Josh Allen and his ability to not stay healthy, or his ability to stay healthy. Lamar Jackson has missed 11 games the last 2 years, but this year I just feel like he was on pace through the first 6 games of the year to be the number 1 quarterback. They added OBJ, which, if he plays, that would help. But Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and a healthy J.K. Dobbins, and a brand new offensive coordinator that's known to spread the ball around, I think we might see 2019 Lamar Jackson if he can stay healthy. So if I can take him, he's on the board. That's who I'm taking. That's my favorite. Hoping to get him at a ADP that gives me some value. And then go ahead.
What I was gonna say, what's the earliest though that you would take him? because for me, with Lamar, he's one of the guys that I would I mean, I wouldn't even mind swapping him out with a guy like Josh or Jalen, to be honest, because I'm kind of with you. He's got Mark Andrews, and their connection is absurd. And Mark Andrews was also battling some injuries last year, I believe. And then the Zay Flowers edition, OBJ, we'll see how he plays out. J.K. Dot. I mean, the weapons are there. So, yeah, I don't know. I would personally look at him like a fifth-ish rounder, maybe.
Well,
but
it kind of depends, because kind of going off what Matt said, his idea is third round, and you guys have all been in fantasy long enough to know as soon as that first person takes a quarterback, everyone goes into panic mode. He's number 5 on my list. I think that's pretty much the consensus around everything that I've seen on ESPN, all the analysts. I think number 5 is a good spot for him. So I think if he's still there around number 4, I think at least for me, as long as none of those other, obviously I would take any of those other guys before him. I would take Mahomes, Hurts, Allen, Burrow. I would take those guys, maybe not Burrow, just because, whatever. But 4th round for me, I think, is where I would see Lamar Jackson going if he's still there. But the other guy that I wanted to just highlight, I kind of already talked about him before. I was going to talk about Aaron Rodgers just because of all his weapons with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. They added Allen Lazard. They brought over Hardman,
the entire Packers receiver.
Yeah, so
core.
he's scary, man. He's scary. He could definitely be a top 5. But Trevor Lawrence is my other favorite, man. At the end of the last year, if you look at his first 6 games, his last 6 games, like it was night and day difference. It looked like he realized how to play quarterback again. They add freaking Calvin Ridley. They add Evan Ingram, or they sign Evan Ingram to an actual contract. Like, that offense could be insane. I think Trevor Lawrence had whatever the metric is where they like look at how not successful, but like consistent, how the value added at the quarterback position. Trevor Lawrence was number 1 last year in all of that. So he doesn't turn the ball over, and he's got crazy athletes around him. So Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson are my 2 favorite this year. He has a sneaky like 8 or 9 touchdowns on the ground, I'm pretty sure, last year.
Trevor Lawrence?
Toughness too. He
maybe
really
like
does.
4. Could be like maybe 1. But it was Trevor more Lawrence than I thought. It was more than I thought. It might not have been 9. That might be a stretch. But
I could be wrong. I haven't looked at any of his statistics, but I feel like he really came on when you saw Evan Ingram just blow up out of nowhere. So that, I mean, they signed him to a long-term deal. I'm curious to see if he can keep up that level of play, because that was insane. Some of the numbers he was putting up.
Yeah. So I lied to you. He had 5. He had 5 rushing touchdowns last year.
That just seems odd.
So those are my 2 guys.
Because he's not small either. He's like 6'6", like a.
At Clemson though, he was running the ball a lot, and he's kind of got a job.
No, it's kind of college though.
Well, he had 62 carries for 291 yards, 5 touchdowns.
To me, I mean, college is high school. When you have your best player, you put the ball in their hands, no matter what. In the NFL, you scheme and you change up as you go. But the NFL is the best of the best. Trevor Lawrence could carry freaking Washington to probably a 13-win season or whatever college schedules are. So
that's a bold statement.
I do want to say one bold statement regarding Dustin's list.
All right.
Well, I want to say 2 things. Number 1, how thankful are we that we're talking fantasy football without Tom Brady involved? Number 2, Russell Wilson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL this season.
Nah. He'll be better. He won't be top 5.
Is wild.
Ability, athleticism.
I respect it.
Yeah, being top 5.
I respect that take. As though it's extremely flaming hot. But Sean Payton had a completely different. Like, everyone's gassing up Sean Payton. Like, Sean Payton's going to turn around, which I think he's a good coach. I really do. But I don't know how we're comparing Drew Brees to Russell Wilson as far as like offensive scheme and how that's going to look similar.
I mean, they're built almost identical.
Huh?
Like.
What?
How many rushing yards does Drew Brees has? I guarantee Russell Wilson's had more in one game than Drew Brees has in 14 years.
5'9", 5'10", or whatever.
Drew Brees was a dart.
Wilson is more athletic, obviously, but they're similar builds, similar styles.
I think the gas is overrated, but I do think the Jerry Jeudy is a sleeper.
Sure. if Russell Wilson's going to be a top 5 quarterback this year, then Jerry Jeudy is putting up absurd numbers.
So Tim, who do you take out of your top 5 and put in Russell Wilson?
You can't take anyone
out. You got Mahomes.
I would love
Jalen Hurts.
You got
taking out Burrow.
I'd say Burrow is now. I'm talking just regular, like just quarterback, not fantasy. You got Mahomes. You got Burrow. You probably got Allen. You got Hurts, and then I'm probably going Wilson.
You have him over Herbert,
or Lamar.
I don't know. Like Herbert's a great quarterback and fantastic for LA for getting that deal done, but every single one of his receivers has health issues every year. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, every single year for the last like 3 or 4 years, and they aren't getting younger.
That massive receiver out of TCU, Quentin Johnson.
Yeah,
that
have a good year.
I mean,
which could help, but I guess
because you know he's getting playing time because, like you said, Keenan or Mike or the both of them. I mean, someone's going to get hurt.
And I mean, like their training staff, stabbed their own quarterback in the lungs a few years ago. So it's like, can you trust him?
I mean,
he's got a point.
It's like, I think this would be like, since we just got done talking about quarterbacks, and we're already talking about their weapons, we can kind of segue into the receivers here.
Sure.
I think it's a smooth segue here. So on get started now. I went deep. I went 20 on this. Wide receiver PPR. They're heavily favorited. I know everyone probably knows who's the number 1 pick in every PPR league across the United States. I get that. That's not going to be a surprise to anybody on this list. But I'm going to go backwards here. I'm going to go from bottom to number 20 to number 1, and I'm actually going to come out of the gate hot.
Oh God!
Favoring my boy Dustin over here. And I'm going to say that Drake London has a breakout season. Okay. I think that offense with Riddler or not Riddler, what's it, Rattler? Whatever the fuck his name is. Desmond Riddler.
Yeah.
Is it Riddler or Rattler?
Ritter. It's Ritter.
I genuinely don't know.
I always get him and Spencer.
Just call him Daddy this year. It's fine.
I always get him and Spencer's last name mixed up. And then Bijan Robinson. So I mean, they're and Kyle Pitts. They have got to be, I would say, probably overall the fastest offense in the NFL. Like just coming out of the gate hot. You could argue probably Miami.
Yeah.
But I mean, across the board, tight end included, I think Atlanta is probably the fastest offense now, which opens up so many lanes through the passing.
What other receivers do they have?
So as far
they
as
have Drake London, I mean, I know they have Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan.
It's been a revolving door, honestly. That's pretty
much it.
Yeah, really.
I will say I like what they've done on the defensive side of the ball this offseason, but not to dive too deep on that.
I think Drake London, though, I think he gets targets this year, and I think he gets plenty of them.
Oh, you know who it was? Sorry not to cut you off. We signed Mac Hollins from the Raiders. Big guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Underperformed in Oakland, so not super high on him. But
I mean, he had a few like fairly decent games there where it was like, okay, who's this guy? But I don't know. That'll be interesting.
Now,
like a Russell Gage situation or something.
Yeah.
I got number 19 here. Number 19, I'm going T. Higgins. A lot of people might think that's a little too low. I think that, obviously he could be anywhere from number 19 to number 4. I mean, obviously Jamar Chase is the number 1 wide receiver in that offense. But when you got Joe Burrow, anyone in that offense could receive for 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 yards on 90 receptions. DeAndre Hopkins at number 18. I think the biggest issue with me there is I think he's still the same player he has been. I think he's still a dominant player. I think the biggest issue there is the unknown with the quarterback situation in Tennessee. I think everyone threw up question marks when he landed in Tennessee. Everyone was like, you're trying to go compete, and then you go just sign your biggest contract in Tennessee that people were offering you. Kind of confusing.
And they're so run heavy there. Like, are they going to throw the ball? I mean, you got your guy.
Yeah, Tannehill. His stats were trash. He wasn't even on my honorable mentions list.
Yeah, and you've got the big second-year receiver out of Arkansas. I can't recall his name, but I mean, he looked okay last year. But
I think
people are just going to stack the box against Derrick Henry if you're not going to utilize DeAndre.
I think if it's a Will Levis ran offense this year, I'd bet my money on him being the starting quarterback week 1. And if he's not, it's Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis is starting by week 6.
I think I agree with you, but I mean, they had to have somebody to open up that offense, even if he's not the main focus, like someone who can just take the attention away from Derrick Henry. That dude was running into 8+ guys every single play last year.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you can just have a threat outside, that opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Robert Woods was not that.
No, not at all.
And they can't afford to double cover him. You know, they got to play 3 linebacker, 4 linebacker when you're playing Tennessee. You got to have 4 or 5 on the offensive line. You can't run a 3-4. Derrick Henry changes the defensive game plan, which opens up for a caliber of DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver, and he's still got a few good years left. Provided he can stay healthy, I think he puts up good numbers and could end up in the top 10 of PPR leagues this year. So 17 through, we'll go through 13. So I got 17 Amari Cooper, 16 Keenan Allen. Really, it's his health. I think he's still a solid receiver, and Justin Herbert obviously is a beast. Number 15, I have this guy a little lower than I think I should. Maybe it's a little bias here. I got Devontae Smith coming out, the number 100 player voted in the league by his peers. Better than DK. I'm just saying. That's what the player said. I didn't say it. So then I got an NFC East rival there going with Terry McLaurin. I think that the quarterback situation in there is weird. I don't think Sam Howell is an answer. We'll find out, but I don't think it's the answer. But Terry McLaurin, he's had great stats the last few years with terrible quarterbacks at the helm.
Yeah, and coaches. Eric Bieniemy is gonna.
I think Ron Rivera's out of a job within 5 weeks. I think he's the first coach fired this year.
Especially with their schedule.
Yeah, their schedule is horrible.
Yeah.
But is Bieniemy going to get is he going to finally get the nod at head coach?
Who? Rivera?
No. When Rivera's gone, is Bieniemy going to finally get the nod?
Oh, we'll see.
I mean,
I don't see how he wouldn't.
It's got to be interim. They're going to give him interim, I bet. And then outside of that, they're still going to finish terrible because no one's going to save that roster or their season this year. And then they're going to judge Bieniemy. They're going to judge him off of that record on a roster that you can't win with.
Yeah.
So Jalen Waddle at number 13. I think he could be a little higher there, but I think Tyreek Hill is still clear and away number 1 in that offense. Number 12, which I think I have this guy 6 or 7 spots too low, but he hasn't played in a few years. We all know I'm talking about.
Oh my God.
Calvin Ridley. Okay. I think he's going to be breakout player of the year. I'm full on board with the way that what's his name? Trevor's playing. He had 1,374 yards on 90 receptions in 2020. The guy, he's probably going to end up being one of the best route runners in the NFL. His speed is there. He's young still. I think he's 24, 25 years old. He's still young. He came into the league super early. I think he honestly could end up just like Trevor Lawrence. A top 5 wide receiver. Trevor Lawrence, top 5 quarterback in the league this year.
Yeah, but my only concern with him is volume because they've got so many weapons there now, and
I think that they
Lawrence
have a good
cast. Move it around.
I think they have a good cast, but I think that they have one weapon.
Christian Kirk is a weapon.
Kirk and Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram are weapons.
I don't agree with
that. What the hell's his name
wouldn't
on the
agree
outside?
with Kirk being a weapon.
Zay Jones.
Christian Kirk had a hell of a year last year.
I think he's good
because he was the only guy there.
Yeah. I think he's good, but in comparison, he's not a Devontae Smith. He's not a number 2 guy that's just like a beast. He's good, but he's not.
There's not a lot of T. Higgins, Devontae Smiths, but he's still someone. You can't just leave him be.
Yeah, for sure.
He's gonna do his thing and get open.
Which is why Ridley is gonna get a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of zone coverage,
and he wins his ones.
I think he eats that up. So, number 11, I knocked this guy back a little bit because of their recent signing. So Amon-Ra St. Brown. They signed Denzel Mims from the Jets. I think Mims is still a solid receiver. He had a terrible quarterback situation with Zach Wilson. I think he has a potential to be an 800-900 yard receiver, which kind of takes away from Amaron. But Dan Campbell slangs it. He slangs that thing. So I mean, Goff is probably going to break 5K yards this year. I think they got that rookie Jameson Williams.
Wait. What?
What?
You just said Jared Goff's going to break 5,000 yards.
He was very close last year.
Was
he
he
very,
actually?
very close.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I'll eat my words because
Bro, they had like
that sounds
the top scoring offense in the NFL almost.
I understand. They're on the come up.
They almost beat the Eagles. I was about to cry.
Wild
like
for a second there.
Jameson Williams, the leg injury, I think depends on Amaron's how significant that is to see how many receptions and whatnot Brown gets this year. So coming in the top 10, DK Metcalf, number 9, AJ Brown, number 8.
Oh, really? Yeah. You just gonna skip over that?
Yeah, hold on.
Hey. I'm biased. Okay. I understand that. Okay, I think the Eagles probably have the best overall running back room in the NFL.
Okay.
The room. Okay, we're deep at that position. But Jalen Hurts, he's not going to be a 5K thrower. So I think that takes away from Brown a little bit. And plus, you have Smith. I mean,
so even with
it's not Joe Burrow throwing to them.
Even with 10 plus tutties last year, with Hurts getting 13 on the ground himself, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where most of Brown's points come from. I think he gets a fair amount of touchdowns and doesn't. I think maybe he's 1,200 yards. So
15,
on 90 receptions. So, but I could see him breaking 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 touchdowns.
He's just so big. I mean, you get in the red zone, you just lob it up to him, and he's how are you going to stop him?
They have a legit second weapon too, and if Devontae Smith takes a step up, he could really take a large load of that offense as well.
That is very true.
Even if AJ Brown keeps up the same, level of play, he may have such a good competitor on his own team that might make that production difficult.
Yeah, I think they're the closest 1 and 2 receiver in the NFL. To which one is number 1 and which one's number 2. You have Higgins and you have Chase, but Chase is the clear number 1 there.
Yeah,
I think.
But you said the Eagles have the best receiver room in the NFL.
I agree.
The running back room, right? Or did you say?
I did. I said running back. I didn't say they have the best running back room. I said they have the deepest running back room. That's a significant difference.
I completely heard you wrong then.
Okay. So, and then outside of number 9, so AJ Brown was number 9. Number 8, we're going to keep it NFC East as much as I don't want to. CeeDee Lamb. He's still up there. He's clearing away the number 1 offensive guy there. Tony Pollard coming off a pretty significant injury. We'll see how their run game is this year. Dak does throw for 4,500 yards season in and season out. So Stephon Diggs at number 7, old reliable. Number 6, I think this is kind of a sleeper, but I think a lot of us can maybe agree on this. I don't know, but I'm going Garrett Wilson. I'm going Garrett Wilson with A-Rod. I think he's gonna tear it up this year. He had 1,103 yards on 83 receptions last year. Yeah. He's got a head and shoulders significantly better quarterback this year, Hall of Fame quarterback. I think easily he can break 1,700 yards and 10 touchdowns this year. They do have a young core, obviously Breece Hall. If he could stay healthy and he comes back and everything's good, that's nasty. Now, number 5, this is where it kind of gets. We all know who number 1 is going to be, but 2 through 5 is kind of, I think, a toss up here. So I have Jamar Chase at number 5. So I think arguably he could be number 2. I think T. Higgins does take away from that a little bit. Now
I don't think he's arguably number 2.
It could be. I think there's an argument for 2 through 5 right here to be an argument for number 2.
I think 1 and 2 are pretty clear cut, but go ahead.
We'll see I think we're going to finally agree on something, John. It's going to be weird.
I will believe it when I see it.
So
what's that? That it was a hold?
Number 4. No, we'll never agree. It's not a hold. Number 4, I got Cooper Kupp. I think that he's a Triple Crown winner, 2 seasons ago. I mean, he had an unfortunate time last year, and I think that was for the best, especially with Matt Stafford's situation, that he didn't, wasn't out there trying to put a full 17-game season together, and just wearing on his body. He got some rest. He got some restoration. I think Cooper Kupp is still arguably the best receiver in the NFL. We'll see coming off his injury season. So then at number 3, I got Davante Adams, which means that John and I probably agree on number 2, and I got Tyreek Hill. We don't.
My number 2 is Devontae.
Really?
I don't know how you just. I mean, I'm okay with Tyreek up there, but Tua he's just not it for me.
See,
so.
if I would agree with that, but if I'm ranking this as best receivers in the NFL, non-fantasy related, Davante Adams is number 1. I think Justin Jefferson will probably be number 1 in a year, and maybe 2. I think Davante Adams, his route running is just too insanely good to not be the best receiver in the NFL. But anyways, yeah, number 3, Davante Adams, number 2, Tyreek Hill, and obviously Justin Jefferson at number 1. Will he break 2,000 yards this year? I'd think the answer is yes.
In how many PPR leagues, though, how many receivers are going to go in the first round, say in like a 10-man league? Because
in a PPR league?
Right. Because obviously you get more volume with backs on the ground, and you got guys like, I don't know, CMC or Austin Eckler. But, I mean, how do you pass up Justin Jefferson or Davante Adams?
Well, it's interesting with Justin Jefferson now because now their running back situation is a lot different too. And they still don't really have a solidified number 2. Is it still Treadwell or
it's
whoever?
Be Jordan Addison. They drafted him.
It will be him over
that's true.
Osborne, KJ Osborne.
Osborne is who I was thinking of.
He'll be the 3rd.
You think he'll be the 3rd?
He'll be the 3rd.
He started to come on a little bit last year.
Depends on if Addison can keep his speedometer in check.
You're not wrong there.
Yeah.
I will say this though, I was really shocked when I heard you say a few of the guys late, but then as you were going over the guys under them, I was like, man, there's just a lot of good receivers this year. But especially Cooper Kupp at 4 is crazy to me because last year I think he was everyone's number 1. Allen Robinson knows this by example. He will literally not throw to anybody except for Cooper Kupp.
That's why if Matthew Stafford comes back healthy and Cooper Kupp's healthy, that's Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins connection. I mean, it's just that's the only guy he's thrown to every single time. So,
and they've proven they can't stop him. I mean, we know where the ball's going, but McVay is going to get him open. He's going to get his touches. I mean, Cooper Kupp could easily be number 1.
Yeah. And they didn't do anything else. The Rams haven't done anything else as far as adding pieces,
they had such a letdown.
They lost last
year.
They lost Ramsey.
They've done nothing.
But on offense, they didn't add anything, did they?
They didn't really do anything too significant.
Not that I'm aware of.
I think they tried to have Stafford
restructure his contract, and he denied it.
He said no.
So would I if I had a bum arm, dude.
Which is weird.
I think the Rams could be a 12-win team this year. They still have the roster for it if they can stay healthy. They got the coach for it. Defense is still nasty. I mean, you lose Ramsey, that sucks. But I mean he's still got arguably the best defensive player on the planet.
Yeah, but to be fair, Houston had the best defensive player on the planet for 10 years, and they were still
and they were a 12-win, 10, 12, 11, 12-win team.
With Deshaun Watson got there.
I mean, Matt Stafford is a pretty good
quarterback. They're the same for sure. No, I agree. He's really good. He's really good.
That no-look pass in the Super Bowl was insane, though.
Take notes, Mahomes.
It was gross. All right, calm down.
All right, that rounds out the wide receiver rankings for me. So, any qualms? Any surprises?
I think you had AJ Brown too low. I was very surprised to see 9, especially after last year. But
my big surprise was DeAndre. Having him as far back as you did, I think that Mike Vrabel is going to learn from last year and how much they ran the ball. I mean, you got to sling the thing, right? I mean, they took a quarterback last year. They took a quarterback this year. Eventually, I feel like they're going to put someone in there who's not going to be afraid to throw it. They're going to work it around. So I think DeAndre, I mean, and maybe that was part of the reason he signed there is because they said, hey, we're going to get you the football. So I don't know. I think he'll have a pretty decent year, assuming he can stay healthy this year, of course.
I could see that happening. Counter argument, though, Vrabel is the second coach to be fired this year.
You think?
You think so?
I feel like he's overperformed with what he's had the past few years.
I can see it.
Their defense is pretty solid every year, I feel like.
If they're like a 9-win team, I think it's a failure.
I don't know because they haven't. If they haven't given him anybody besides, if they, it depends what they do with Levis, right? If they ride Tannehill the whole year, then yeah, get him out. And they do bad, get him out, sure. But if they put in Will Levis, then I think that gives them some more grace there if they have a bad year.
But if the team sucks and it's obviously a roster issue, the first person they're going to replace is the head coach.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's just the easiest way to go about, fixing things.
Yeah.
So
one question I have, Tim, and I may have missed it. Did you have Chris Olave on that list?
Did not.
I didn't hear his name.
I probably would have him at like 21. But
or Michael Thomas.
I'm a little unsure of the Derek Carr situation there in New Orleans.
It'd be worse than last year, though. I mean, they didn't have a good situation last year.
I mean, you threw it up to Devontae.
I mean, you had a homeboy who just chucks it. Derek Carr's not a chucker. He check downs, he throws interceptions. He's a decent quarterback, but Jameis Winston just, I mean, he launches that thing. So
he'll get it for a good majority of last year too. I mean,
what's that?
Andy Dalton was for a good majority of last year too.
He was, and I would say Andy Dalton and Derek Carr are a little more similar.
I look at that Saints situation and I compare it to the Broncos situation. If either of those quarterbacks are going to have a good year, then Olave is going to go the hell off and Judy's going to go the hell off. I mean, and then you look at their number twos, Cortland Sutton, he's okay. I'm taking Michael Thomas over him all day, but you can't rely on Thomas to stay healthy. So, I mean, I think they're in similar boats, but
yeah. Going back to your list, Tim, I don't really have any comments. I like most of it. It's hard to put, like, obviously you recognize that Ridley probably will end up higher. I think that's all speculation, but I would agree. I think he ends up being super, if not top 5, very close to it. And then I really liked how low you had Jalen Waddle, to be honest. Like that offense with Tua, I cannot believe that Tua does not utilize Jalen Waddle more than he does. Like I realize you have Tyreek that almost had 1,700 yards and seven
Mike
touchdowns
too, and that guy's a red zone threat.
But for as how highly as the NFL and everyone around it and people that have seen Jalen Waddle in person, as highly as they say that he is, like, I mean, he had a decent year last year, but Tua just doesn't seem to want to give him the ball as much as I think he should. So,
I think it all falls on Tua. I don't think Tua is an NFL elite quarterback.
Well, that's why I had him outside my top 10.
I don't know if I agree with that one.
I had him outside my top 10.
I don't think he's there.
Man, last year they were, I believe, they started off really hot. I think they were like 5-0. Jalen Waddle was a top, I want to say 8 wide receiver. What happens? Tua ends up getting a couple head injuries. Backups start coming in. That's when Waddle's production fell off. So he could still very easily have that production again with Tua. That's all I'm going to say about that. But he really did break off last year on fire. And he's a guy who, with one play, just like Tyreek Hill, can go 80 yards and get you an entire game's production just off of one catch. So I'm a little higher on the Waddle train than it looks like you guys are, but
it looks
but unfortunately the 80-yard one catch touchdown guys aren't as valuable in PPR leagues as the guys who are Hunter Renfrow is a PPR, elite. So it's like, don't really know his situation, but that's why he's not on my list. And I'll probably get laughed at if I put him on my list. But I mean, they just catch 10 passes a game. It's like, that's 10 points just off of catches.
Yeah.
So they're 20-point games, every freaking week. That's insane. So,
yeah, inside the top 20, looking at 2022 numbers, inside the top 20, Waddle is second fewest receptions out of any receiver. But to Matt's point, he also has 79.8 yards per game.
Yeah, he's a big play receiver. And unfortunately, though, the guy on his other side is the bigger play receiver, and he can catch short routes and gets the ball thrown to him more. So
that's interesting. It's a good problem to have for sure. But
I think he's still a top tiered, wide receiver too. I mean, I would draft him, second, third round, fourth round if he's still there. I don't know if I give him a second, but I would definitely be looking at him third and fourth round. So,
final point. I'm curious what John and Dustin think. T. Higgins at 19. That's got to be a little too low, right?
Mm.
Got to be a little too low.
You know, I'll go first here. Thank you. But I do think it is a little bit too low. I think, if I'm not mistaken, John, I think you might have had T. Higgins a couple years ago on your team, or is that completely wrong? I had him last year. I thought maybe you had him. But as somebody that's had him, he's one of the most frustrating players to have on your team. Because, yeah, he had 7 touchdowns, but I think Chase had 8 or 9. And it just seems like he'll get you 5 catches for 80 yards. But it's a full 1-point PPR league. It's so incredibly frustrating. Some
when
games,
you need him,
when you need him.
When you need him, he's on your bench.
He's on your bench. Yeah, but I do agree. I do think that he's too low. 19 is too low, in my opinion, for sure.
No, I completely agree with you. I start to look at the list and I'm like, where would he slide in at?
Yeah.
Maybe in the top.
Sorry, I had to get
15 somewhere. But it's a volume issue, I think, and there's games where they're like, okay, we're gonna double chase, and Tyler Boyd is kind of falling off. And those are the games where it's like, oh, T. Higgins, he had 40 points, but he's, like we said, on our bench. So
yeah, that's the frustrating part, because when like Jamar Chase was out last year, you're like, okay, this is it, T. Higgins up to bat. And then Tyler Boyd gets 5 catches and 3 touchdowns, and you're like, "What the crap is going on?" Like, so.
Yeah.
But
I think in a 2 wide receiver league with 1 flex, let's just assume 1 flex. I think this year is going to be the toughest year for setting lineups as far as receivers are concerned. I think
especially for PPR leagues.
Yeah, you have your clear cut number ones, but I mean, on any day, if you have a solid, third guy, I mean, it's going to be frustrating watching the T. Higgins put up, 45 points on your bench, or, like it's,
I mean, there's going to be people like debating, do I start T. Higgins or do I start Brandon Cooks? And it's like, I mean, either one of them could go off and have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but it's not like it's not a regular occurrence for them. So not anymore, at least.
Well, I think we go ahead and get into the guys behind the quarterbacks.
Yeah,
whoever.
I want to go back to Miami. So I'm gonna, before I even jump into my top 20, I'm gonna throw a few names at you that are not on my list. So the first few are because they're still free agents. Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott. And then the Miami thing, why I said Miami, Dalvin Cook. Supposedly, rumor has it that they're the favorites to sign him. I've also heard Arizona and Baltimore linked to him, and also Chicago. So that'll be something to keep an eye out for. If he goes to Miami right now, they've got Raheem Mostert, and they've got Jeff Wilson, who looked okay last year when he got some playing time after he was traded there. But obviously, I think if Dalvin Cook goes to the Dolphins, he's an instant starter. And then, of course, suspended Alvin Kamara. Who knows how long he's going to be suspended? I don't see if he's suspended for any longer than 4 games. It's just so tough to make it back into the top 20, I would think, and especially because the Saints just got Jamal Williams. So he's kind of a hit or miss, I think, this year. Now, players who are not in my top 20, who they're on rosters, they're the projected starters. We're gonna start it off hot for Tim here. No DeAndre Swift. Like you were saying, they've got probably the deepest running back room in the league, and I think with how many touches Kenneth Gainwell has and Boston Scott, and then you have to factor in the fact that Jalen Hurts takes damn near every touchdown away within the 5-yard line. So I don't see him being a top 20 back. And on top of all of that, you have to factor in his health. He hasn't been able to stay healthy for a while. So DeAndre Swift. And then I'm going to come after Matt's boy, J.K. Dobbins. It's just a health issue there. A health issue as well as Lamar Jackson. He's going to take a lot of touches away. Kind of a similar scenario to the Jalen Hurts issue. And maybe the backs in Chicago with Justin Fields. Some other names not as notable. James Conner, Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, Rachaad White.
He's
out of
maybe 10th round.
Who's that? Pacheco?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not up there for
maybe
me.
in PPR leagues, but I mean there's so many other options, and it's similar to like the Eagles. They spread the ball around so much. They still have Jerick McKinnon. My honorable mention, Deneric Prince. None of you know who that is. Go ahead and look him up. He's going to be a sleeper this year for the Chiefs. Now, it's just a volume issue there, but
there's a Chiefs running back to your list. It's not even the NFL.
Oh, shut your mouth. And then Rachaad White. I mean, the Bucks. No one expects the Bucks to do anything this year, but he's a pretty versatile back, and obviously they don't have Leonard Fournette anymore, so he's going to be taking over the. Still a free agent. I don't know that he'll go anywhere because he's old, and
Have you guys looked at the free agency list? It's nuts.
I did. I saw it earlier. It is wild.
I think the biggest names are definitely Dalvin and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, but outside of the obvious,
there's a lot of solid pieces on there.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a ton of injury replacements with core veteran guys. But all right, go ahead, John.
They've, I mean, all of these teams have been linked to, I think, both Dalvin and Kareem, and I believe it was the Dolphins, the Cardinals, the Ravens, and the Bears. And I thought the Cardinals was kind of interesting because they need more help at any other position than running back. I mean, James Conner's not the worst option, but I don't know. It'll be something to keep an eye out on. And obviously, there's been a ton of controversy regarding running backs within the past 2 weeks and all this contract talk. So, kind of touch on that in a little bit. But I'm also going to go in reverse order, and we're going to start at number 20. And I know there's going to be a lot of hate on my list, so I'm prepared for it. Number 20, Miles Sanders. He had over 1,300 yards. Obviously, he went to the Carolina Panthers. What's wrong?
I'm just stretching and getting ready for my hate.
Okay. He had over 1,300 yards. He still had 11 touchdowns, believe it or not, even though Jalen Hurts took about 12 of them from him, which was very frustrating as a fantasy owner of his. He goes to Carolina. They've got Bryce Young now. They brought over guys like Adam Thielen and DJ Chark. It's so iffy there. I mean, if Bryce Young comes out and balls out, and he's able to move the ball down the field, then yeah, Miles Sanders is a very viable option. I don't see that being the case, and I don't think that their defense will be able to hold up. So, Miles Sanders at 20 for sure. Number 19, this guy's interesting. Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I was iffy on it, but he's such a versatile back. He's a pass catcher. The problem is David Montgomery, potentially. How much are they going to play Gibbs over Montgomery or vice versa? How much are they going to pass the ball? Are they going to be in third down situations? Is he going to be strictly a third down back? So he's someone to keep an eye on. Number 18, I really like this guy a lot. Dameon Pierce out of Houston. I'll say this. He had a high ankle sprain last year in week 14. He was placed on IR. And in 13 games played, he racked up 250 touches for over 1,100 yards. On the Houston Texans, that is.
It's interesting.
They brought
in sprain. Mahomes still played the Super Bowl. That's weird. Anyways,
a little bit different position, but I mean, I think the situation there was week 14. They already sucked ass. They knew they weren't making the playoffs.
True.
Why risk this crazy talented running back who has come out in his rookie year and broke out? Now you bring in guys like C.J. Stroud, like we mentioned earlier this week. I think it was John Mechie's coming back, standout wide receiver. They signed Dalton Schultz, Robert Woods. Robert Woods is there. But they're saying Dameon Pierce looks healthy, so I expect him to have a pretty good year. Number 17, Joe Mixon took a pay cut this year to stay on the Bengals. He's chasing rings now. He's old, but he's still pretty valuable, I think. And he's their only back. Samaje Perine's gone. So Joe Mixon, I think, is primed to have a decent year. He had 14 games played, so he stayed fairly healthy, I think. But
he had a couple banger games last year, man. Mm-hmm. He could easily climb up that list.
He had that one game where he had 5 touchdowns. And
I was playing him that week. I know about that game.
He had 9 touchdowns in total, Matt. I'm sorry to break it to you. Yeah. But he did still have over 1,200 yards. So, I mean, It's interesting. They did draft a running back. I don't see this other running back taking over Joe Mixon's starting role. I think that Joe Mixon is potentially poised to be a 3-down back. Might be a bit of a stretch, but number 16, Aaron Jones. Real interesting. I think that a lot of people may have him higher than that. No, Tim?
I would love to hear your explanation
he'd be
around
much
him.
higher for me. He'd be much higher.
He wouldn't even be top 20 for me.
Oh my gosh, you're crazy.
So
You're out of your mind.
the biggest issue I have is obviously Jordan Love. I don't see Jordan Love being the guy. I don't think he's going to move the ball down the field. I think they're going to stack the box, and there goes Aaron Jones. I really like Aaron Jones, great player, but they also have AJ Dillon. And last year, as a fantasy owner of Aaron Jones, in one of my leagues, as a fantasy owner, I was so pissed off seeing how many touches AJ Dillon was taking from Aaron Jones. I will say this. He had 1,500 yards still, all-purpose yards. And there was one game. Hold on. Let me read my notes. Sorry.
No, while you do that, I just think it's crazy to have somebody that averages 5.3 yards per carry outside of your top whatever, but it's fine.
So, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Okay, this is what it was. In the games where Aaron Jones did have more, he had 14 or more carries, which was 6 of the games. All 6 of those games, he had over 100 yards. And in only 2 of those games, he only had over 20 carries. So, I mean, the production's there, but like I said, I mean, Jordan Love, I just don't think is the guy. And even when you have Aaron Rodgers, I mean, you have to respect it. You got to play the pass. I think they load the box. I think the Packers are done for this year, and they look to move on next year.
I want to counter that though, because I have a couple points here. One, I watched the Packers a lot last year because I did have Aaron Jones, I had AJ Dillon. One thing I will say is when Aaron Rodgers is in the offense, Aaron Rodgers is running his offense. And what does that mean? It's 3rd and 1. We don't want to run the ball. We are the field. And so while I agree with you, I think maybe Aaron Jones loses a little bit of maybe some receptions because he doesn't have that quarterback there anymore. I think they're going to be a much more run-heavy offense. And honestly, when they went on a run late in the year, Aaron Rodgers wasn't throwing for that many yards. He was throwing for less than 300 yards a game, and they were winning because they were getting the ball to the backs. And so maybe their offense is just worse this year because they don't have that threat of Aaron, but I actually see their production going up because of it.
You see Jones and Dillon's production going up because of it?
Absolutely. They're going to get significantly more touches. They're going to be the focal point of the offense this year.
I think they get more touches, but they run into different defenses. And I think Matt LaFleur has only ever coached against one style of defense and in the NFL. So I think that, Jordan Love is not the guy. I think the defenses they're going to be seeing now are going to be blitz heavy. They're going to be stacked boxes. Aaron Jones has played. This is his 7th season in the NFL. He's barely cracked 1,000 yards 3 times. The guy's I mean, a decent running back in the NFL is an 800-900 1,000 yard rusher, but a great running back in the NFL is 1,500 yards. I don't. Aaron Jones just ain't that guy for me. He's right there outside of the top 20, but I think that LaFleur runs into a different kind of NFL this year, with Aaron Rodgers not being his quarterback and the way that the defenses are going to start playing the Green Bay Packers. I don't see Dillon having a great year. I don't see Dillon or Jones having a great year. So.
No, yeah, I'm in agreement. So that's where I got Aaron Jones, number 16 for me, and it's PPR. So I think that there's other viable options, but I'm going to speed it up a little bit. 15, 14, and 13. Now, 13 is going to be an interesting one for you guys. Are going to hate on me for it. 15, I got Alexander Mattison. I need to see it first. We've never seen him in a starting role. I don't know if he's going to be putting up Dalvin Cook numbers necessarily, but he could break out. He could go the hell off. He could be a top 10 running back easily. It'll be interesting to see how they use him if he's used in the passing game, if he's a 3-down back. So 15, Alexander Mattison. Number 14, Travis Etienne. Again, kind of the same scenario. Could be a top 10 back, especially with Calvin Ridley. I mean, teams are going to be playing pretty deep coverages, I would think, against that offense, how stacked they are. So Travis Etienne, he could go off, but they did draft a guy named Tank Bigsby. It'll be interesting to see if he's splitting touches or not with him. So number 14, Travis Etienne. Now here we go. Number 13, and I only do this because I don't trust this team's running game at all, especially after last year, and I'm completely confused with them. Number 13 is Bijan Robinson.
Ooh.
Stop the podcast. Stop.
Yeah, I am waiting to hear this.
I gotta go.
So okay, what? Obviously he's an insanely versatile back. You just drafted Algier last year, and he took over Cordero Patterson's starting spot. And then on top of that, the offense was horrific, and you hardly ever run the football. So is he going to be touching the ball on every single play? Is Desmond Ridder going to be? You think so? See, I don't know. I think that they're going to load the box against Bijan, and I think the team's going to struggle.
He's a running back that not a lot of we don't have a lot of them that come into the NFL. He's a Saquon Barkley. He's a running back that can carry a team. The guy changes their record from a 4-win team to an 8-win team, a 9-win team.
I disagree.
He's versatile. He's fast. He can catch. He's got a little power to him. He's not just a tiny back that's going to get ran over. I mean, to me,
he breaks 1,000 yards
Barkley.
easily. I think he breaks 1,000 yards easily. But I don't think that that offense is going to be as explosive as they need to be to get him opened up and freed up. And so I guess for me, it's kind of I need to see it to believe it. One of those things. And yeah, that's where I have him. I know Dustin is just appalled.
I think he's a 1,500 all-purpose guy. And I think he's a 10 touchdown guy. I think he's rookie of the year. I'll say he's rookie of the year.
Yeah, I think he's top 5 at the end of the year for sure.
I'm for sure top 10 though. I don't know about 13.
Top 5 all running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think when people look at him and they look at the Falcons, they're like, "Wow, what are you doing? You have so many pieces already." Cordero Patterson's 32, so I'm taking him out of the equation altogether. I don't think he's gonna be. He can't keep doing what he's been doing, and if he does, then freaking slap my cheeks and call me Sally because good for him.
You say that, but he had two record games last year, and then all of a sudden the Falcons are like, "Oh, see you later. You're on the bench." It's like,
well, yeah, because we have Marcus Mariota throwing from his butt. Like we don't even know what we're doing.
Yeah, so hand the ball off. Give it to your guy who just had
a great year. Top 3 rushing team last year. Now you add in Bijan Robinson, who can be your Christian McCaffrey. Excuse me. Did you watch him at Texas?
I disagree. I just disagree.
Okay, well,
and I hope that he makes me eat my words because I would like to see your team do well because I feel for you and I know the pains that you've been through. So,
John, you have him at 13. Where's the highest you're drafting him at?
Yeah.
You see him on your board. What round are you thinking right now?
In a full PPR league.
In a full PPR league, I think if he falls, say I'm like the 8th or 9th pick in the first round, he's going first round. I think people are so high up on him.
Yeah, he definitely is. Yeah,
I think people are so high up on him.
In a PPR?
Oh yeah, that'll be first round.
Everything out of Falcons camp is he's got great hands. Arthur Smith is going to use the crap out of him.
Sorry, John, I didn't hear you. Where would you draft him?
I could see him going first round, but I could also see him falling to mid to late second rounds, and especially in PPR leagues with some of those receivers that we listed off, and then some of the backs that I have coming up as well. I mean, it's just how do you trust on an Atlanta Falcons team? How do you trust this guy? I mean, is he going to score? Is he going to produce?
He's early second. That's right.
Interesting.
I don't mind that.
All right, what you got next, John?
Number 12, Kenneth Walker, Seattle. Kenneth Walker out of Seattle. You say you're faded. He didn't become a starter until week 5 of last year, and in the first 4 games, he had a total of 24 carries. he still managed to muster up 255 touches for over 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's with the first 4 games he wasn't even a starter. So, I mean, the final 3 games of the year, he had 26, 23, and 29 touches. He had well over 100 yards in each of those games. I think he's set for a breakout year.
He could be a beast. I think he could be a breakout
he's
player.
a tank. They don't have. I mean, yes, they drafted a running back in the second round actually of this year's draft, but I don't see them going away from him. And they also got Njigba Smith, so they've got a pretty solid trio out on the outside. They've got to respect the passing game. I think Kenneth Walker's set for a big year. Breece Hall, number 11. I think he comes back this year, and with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, I think that this kid's set to break out. Shout out Northwest High, by the way, right here in Wichita, produced a stud. So Breece Hall at number 11. Obviously, it was an ACL tear, so he could come out and be a dud. He could come out and look great. They say that he's all healed up and he looks fantastic. So I think with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall is easily. I've got him at 11. He could very easily jump top 10. This one here I was iffy on. Number 10, Ramondre Stevenson. The usage that this guy gets out in New England is absurd, and with no more Damien Harris to split touches with, I think that he is primed for a pretty big year. They don't really have anybody else either. They've got Juju, who they brought in. But other than that, I mean, he is the top dog. He's going to be a workhorse this year. He had 279 touches last year. I only expect that to go up. So I think I expect him to be a 3-down back and really show what he's capable of this year. These next ones, I'm just going to keep getting hate. Number 9, Najee. Now I know that Matt's real high on this guy. Najee, he had a minor ankle and he had an abdomen injury in 2022. He still had over 300 touches. He had 10 touchdowns, 1,200 yards. The production's there, but I think that Pickett's really got to step up his play. That offense just did not look up to par. And I think if Najee Harris plans on being a top 5 back, then Pickett really has to step it up and start to produce a little bit better than what he has. So I've got Najee at 9. Number 8. You don't hate that?
No, not at all. I mean, last year,
100% hate it.
You hate it?
You think he's too low?
And he only had 7 touchdowns last year.
Oh, have you watched that guy run the ball?
At least rushing.
He looked like
total.
He looked like me out there with his vision, his athleticism.
Last year, he also came into the season with an injury, and so that's the only thing that I think is concerning. But I agree, if that was just him at his highest point last year, then yeah, he's absolutely too high because he did not look good in any way, shape, or form.
He was one of the most frustrating fantasy players.
That guy literally like this is your lane, and I mean he's running this way.
Well, and so something else I jotted down. He actually last year he had 68 fewer touches and 400 less yards than he did in his rookie season. So like we were saying, I mean it was a lackluster season
because I realized how bad he was.
Well, yes, and I don't know if Mike Tomlin maybe this year gets back to it, or maybe they stick to the same game plan as last year. I don't know why you would after the year they had, but I mean I still think that he's more than capable of producing. I just don't see him being a top 5 back, or I guess technically even a top 8 back. Number 8. Okay. Number 8, and this isn't because I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm not hating on the guy.
If you say Pacheco,
no, he's not on my list.
Okay.
You dingus. Number 8, I have Josh Jacobs. NFL's leading rusher last year. He had 1,600 yards over somewhere around there, 1,600 yards. He had 400 yards through the air, 12 touchdowns, but I think it was all a fluke. In his first 3 years in the NFL, he has barely averaged over 1,000 yards. And he had an average of, I think it was 9 touchdowns in his first 3 years. So you mean to tell me that he just broke out last year and all of a sudden is a 1,600 yard per year back? I disagree. I disagree. The addition of Devontae Adams may have helped. I'm pretty sure it did a little bit, but you also have to you have to consider that Derek Carr's gone. Jimmy Garoppolo is now in.
They're the same quarterback.
I was gonna say that's not
Same
really a
quarterback.
drop off in any way, man.
The only difference
Might
is
be an
Jimmy's the
upgrade.
winner.
Might be an
An
upgrade.
upgrade?
Might be.
I
I
think he
don't
is.
know who's been
Jimmy
to a
G's the
Super
winner.
Bowl. I don't know.
I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo's moving the ball down the field with that team. I don't see
who's
it.
who's their
Yeah,
receivers this year.
You're absolutely right. Josh Jacobs is.
So is what's his name? He's still there. Devontae Adams.
Devontae
Right.
Adams.
Am I faded? He's still
Devontae
there.
Adams,
Darren Waller's
Renfro.
gone.
Matt
have a
Collins is
rookie tight
gone.
end.
Matt
Matt
Collins
Collins
is
is gone.
Yep.
So I
Hunter
mean,
Renfro.
gone.
Jimmy Garoppolo was carried to that Super Bowl, by the way, by his
I agree.
absurd
I agree.
defense.
I agree.
Experience is experience.
And so here's the first player that we need to start talking about all of this contract controversy as well.
I think that's the only knock on him is
he
don't know.
100%.
You don't know. And I mean, he has made it clear that he's unhappy. I think out of the few players that have come out and expressed their frustrations, I think that he is by far the most frustrated. He's set to make, I think it's just over $10 million on the franchise tag. No, he's not.
That's why he's so mad.
No. He had one good year.
Last year he was.
Is he 24 years
I
old?
don't think he's the best this year, but I think last year he was.
He had one good year last
he's
year,
young.
led the NFL in rushing, and all of a sudden wants to be paid over $20 million a year. I don't see it. You can't average 1,000 yards.
When you
Getting
see David Montgomery getting $18 million for 3 years, that's why.
I understand. I mean, yeah, these other guys are fugazi in their contracts. I don't know how in the hell David Montgomery's making that, and especially when you see some of these quarterbacks, like in Saquon's situation, making $40 million a year, and they're like, "Oh, here's your tag." Like, I get the frustrations, but I mean, you don't know with Josh Jacobs, like Tim was saying, and I think it was a fluke year, so it'll be interesting to see.
The only thing I will say is on that, I don't know about his receiving production. So in PPR formats,
that
may be something to think
about.
What
was it last year? Any ideas?
He had 400 yards through the air.
I guarantee.
I'll look.
I didn't jot that one.
You're gonna have a guy here in the next few picks that is going to be the exact same scenario as Josh Jacobs.
Probably.
Yeah, 53 catches last year for 400.
So go ahead and say his name. He probably next.
No, he's not next. My next guy, you say 53 catches?
53 for 400, yeah.
So not a ton. I guess it could be worse, but
yeah.
My next guy, Tony Pollard at number 7. Obviously coming off of a leg fracture. It'll be iffy to see him. They say he looks healthy as well. He's doing some light work in OTAs. He was playing behind Zeke, and we've never seen him as a starter, but he was still producing out the ass. I mean, this guy, he looks like a stud. He's brought into he's got a great offense around him. Besides that, great offensive line. Another note to something to take note of there is Zach Martin, though. Recently not reporting to camp. Again, contract issues.
He'll get paid.
If he doesn't, then it's absurd. He's easily the best guard in football. But there's nobody else to back up Tony Pollard now. I mean, they did draft Deuce. They brought in Ronald Jones, did nothing for the Chiefs last year. And they've got a second year back in Malik Davis. I don't see any of them taking any carries out of Tony Pollard's hands. I think he's a 3-down back. I think he's a workhorse this year. Assuming he stays healthy, he could go the hell off. He was also someone, though, who got franchise tagged, and I actually just read earlier today, he was offered a long-term contract extension, and they declined it. So he chose to take the tag. It must have been a fairly weak offer. And I'm the way I look at it, it's one of those bet on yourself Lamar Jackson situations. Where he's like, okay, I'm going to prove to you guys what I'm worth. You also have to consider the stupid amount of money that Zeke was paid when he was there. He probably saw that and was like, okay, I'm gonna make my money too.
90,
so
60 or 90 million.
I think it was 90.
I think it was 90.
Just playing for the Cowboys. That's what you get.
Yeah, $20 double talls. But anyways, Jones.
All right, here he is.
Jones World, baby. Here he is. Number 6, Saquon Barkley.
Oh, no. That is psycho. What?
Number 6, Saquon Barkley.
And this is with him signing and everything afterwards?
This is yes. I don't think that moves him much. The ridiculous thing about that he complained about his contract. Complained about getting tagged. It was for just over 10 million, 10 million, like 91,000. And then he turns around and signs for a contract, an extension. Well, not an extension, but he signed for 11 million, and 900,000 of that's going to be in incentives, and it's all dependent on whether or not they make the playoffs and how they do in the playoffs. I don't understand that. I don't think that he's going to sit out. Obviously, my thing with Saquon is injury prone. He's very injury prone. He finally had a full season last year, but can we really rely on that? So
I think the injury prone thing is thrown around a little too much, because
with
the guy can
Saquon
go
though,
his whole career without getting hurt, and then he gets hurt 1 year, and now all of a sudden he's injury prone.
And it wasn't even his injuries are not. He stepped on someone's foot.
He tore his ACL.
He tore his ACL and then came back and stepped
like he
on
had a
someone's
nagging,
foot.
knee or foot. And he's not Michael Thomas. You know?
Yeah. That's my point. Is the injuries that he has had, I don't think you can tag him with injury prone. I think it's unfortunate, wrong place.
You see those quads?
Well, and so
fine.
I mean, Saquon's a great back. Don't get me wrong. You're gonna call me crazy for having him below this next guy. But the other four after that, I don't think that it's even an argument in my personal opinion.
I'm just ready to start throwing down once you say the name.
Number 5, my man. He is the most hated on running back in the league. He gets no love year in and year out. Nick freaking Chubb.
Hey, you're not giving him any love either.
Why are we? What? Why? This guy has he is consistently projected outside of the top 10 backs, I feel like, every single year, and I just don't understand. He was healthy all year last year. He doesn't have Kareem Hunt anymore to steal his carries. He had over 1,700 all-purpose yards, 13 touchdowns. He's now got Deshaun Watson leading the team. This guy's prepped for a massive year once again, I think. You could argue that they're going to throw the ball a little bit more, but I mean, I don't see his production falling at all. I think he's an easy 1,500 plus yard guy, even in a PPR league. So Nick Chubb at 5. Number 4, JT.
See this right here. You are ragging on Josh Jacobs when he is literally a replica of JT.
I don't think Josh Jacobs is even in the same boat as JT personally.
This is his 4th year, and he's broken. He's had one stellar year, just like Josh Jacobs.
In 11 games last year, Tim, JT had over 1,000 yards, 220 touches,
all purpose.
Okay, he had like 890 on the ground in 11 games. Give him those other 6 games, and what's he got?
1,200, 13 less than Josh Jacobs.
You're an idiot. I think that I mean, it's so dependent on Anthony Richardson. If this kid comes out and balls, and if he starts to run the ball, I think it's only going to open up more lanes for JT.
He had right now.
Who's that?
JT.
Correct. Yeah, he had a cleanup surgery. There was no structural damage to him. He's going to be fine this year. It's solely
fine.
Yes. It's solely dependent, I think, on how their quarterback play is. If Anthony Richardson can't at least open up some lanes for him, then it could be a difficult year. But it's JT. He's, like I said, 11 games, 1,000 yards. He's a workhorse. I see him.
I'm 100% on Tim's side on this one, because I mean, you're saying Josh Jacobs is, a one-hit wonder. I mean, we've kind of already seen that Jonathan Taylor was a one-hit wonder, and then last year heavily fell off. He doesn't have as good a quarterback. He doesn't have Devontae Adams on the outside to take attention away from him.
Well, he didn't play half the year. He didn't play half the year.
Well, the half of the year he did play, he didn't live up to the hype.
I mean, that's pretty damn good stats and good workload for the games that he played, and the team that he had. So, let me ask you this: so you're taking Josh Jacobs before? Are you taking Josh Jacobs before Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley?
Assuming that they have equal contract. First off, Saquon's above both of them because of his receiving production. That to me is not even a comparison. But Josh Jacobs over Nick Chubb, probably yes.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I'm happy with either.
and I mean, I feel like a lot of these guys are you're happy to get them. They're all gonna be, I feel like, first rounders, especially in non PPR leagues. A majority of them, even in probably some PPR leagues as well. So, number 3, I don't see how even though it's a PPR league, how do you not go Derrick Henry? He's the king. Led the NFL in rushing attempts. He had damn near 350 of them. He had 1,900 yards all purpose, 14 touchdowns. I don't give a shit that he doesn't catch the ball. He gets the ball and he does work with it.
I think that goes down by 100 carries this year.
That
Very well could.
You pay DeAndre Hopkins money, you throwing the fucking ball.
I mean, it's possible, and I mean, but that could also open up so many more opportunities for him as well.
He could have a higher average.
Exactly.
I think his touches go down by 100. I think he's
100 might be
220 to 260. I bet is where he's at.
It's not. I mean, yes, last year they were horrendous, but it's not like they've been a horrible team this whole time. I mean, they made the playoffs. They damn near beat us, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, they're the only 2-minute drill team in I formation. You know, like let's run the ball from the 10-yard line to go score a touchdown to win the game.
I think that his workload alone, I don't see how he's not a top 3 back in every single league and every single format. But personal opinion,
I'll tell you this: I'd rather have Saquon.
I would too.
100%.
Well, I'll tell you this:
I did say
involved.
I would put Henry at like 10.
Process. He's been on the Zoom calls and everything, and I know he's coming up for an extension. So don't be surprised if he's saying, "Hey, you guys aren't paying us. I may not want as much of a workload." That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I don't know if he would say that.
I don't think you can say that. Coach would be like, "All right, bye.
Yeah. Get your ass on the bench."
Derrick Henry.
I mean, at one point,
with that, you take Derrick Henry off the Titans, and you're relying on Tannehill to throw the ball.
Literally their team, man.
I mean, I agree with that, but what kind of tone are you setting with like the rest of your players if like you just allow one player to do whatever the fuck they want?
Well, I did say there's going to be a lot of fucking controversy with my list, and there clearly is. But
all right, we know who number 2 is.
Do you?
LA.
You're correct. Yeah, I mean, these guys are interchangeable. I feel like you're not pissed off if you get either one of them. I've got Eckler at 2. I've got CMC at 1. Eckler's situation is actually very interesting, seeing as how he was kind of the organizer of this little Zoom call committee, whatever you want to call it. And then like 2 days later, they're like, "Hey, Justin Herbert, here's $260 million." So that would really piss me off. But he outtouched CMC last year. CMC outproduced him, and let's not forget CMC didn't go to the 49ers until week 7. I think that with having a whole off season, I mean, he was healthy, so that's a big sign. You could throw the injury prone out there for CMC too if you want to. But I mean, I think in that offense with guys like Debo, guys like George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, the production he had last year, getting over there so late, I think that he's just set for another big time year. Yes, they've got Trey Lance or can't think of the other guy's name, Brock Purdy, whoever you want. I don't think it matters. CMC is going to get his touches. Same thing with Eckler. Go ahead.
What?
Oh, I heard a Dirk lip smack, so I didn't know if he was just
agreeing. I was agreeing with you. I was gonna add
in. He was just reminiscing on your list.
Yeah, I had him last year in fantasy, Christian McCaffrey, and it was phenomenal. And the game where he ran, caught, and threw a touchdown pass was
he's Mr. Do It All. He's literally Mr. Do It All.
Yep.
And when I made the list, obviously all of the contract stuff, all the contract talk was first becoming apparent. So, not that I would change it now, but I think Eckler at 2 is a pretty safe bet. He also he's had a few injuries himself, I guess, so you could throw that in there. But weaker offensive line, not as much usage. Still a great player, gonna get you a lot of fantasy points, but I got CMC at 1. So,
much as I'm loyal to my boy Lane Johnson, I think that Trent Williams is probably the best tackle in the NFL.
He's a tank,
a
literal unit.
I think CMC is no matter how many times he's been taken number one and disappointed fantasy owners because he's gotten hurt, is still the clear cut number one. And
It's such a different situation too. I mean, you got Kyle Shanahan's not a great coach by any means, but
not in the playoffs, regular season.
not in the playoffs. But I mean, you give him this much time with a guy like CMC, and I know that Debo was saying he wants to be more involved. So I think that the 49ers they could be dangerous this year. So
well,
other than the Saquon and Josh Jacobs, any other standouts?
I mean,
Bijan Robinson. That's insane.
Bijan.
That's insane to me.
Yeah, he screwed him up.
Where okay, so where would you have him at as far as your top 10
rankings?
As far as my top 10, probably 6, 7.
Yeah, around there.
6, 7. Okay. Well, I guess we'll have to just wait and see on that one because I just don't trust the Atlanta Falcons. I think it's the biggest issue.
Good job putting Jahmyr Gibbs in there.
I was iffy on
it, and I drafted him in my dynasty draft already.
He's so iffy though. I mean,
which I have the most stacked running back core ever assembled in that league. So Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I have Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, it sounds like you're robbing people blind.
Yeah, I don't know who's in your league, but
I gave up Josh Allen.
Based on your friend's performance in our league over the past 3 or 4 years, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's with other people, okay? And to be fair, like Matt said many times, Skylar drafts pretty great. He just gets railed by injuries.
Well.
All right, well, let's move on. I think to the most versatile position in the NFL. Are you a blocker? Or are you a catcher? Are you a receiver? Are you a crybaby?
Or are you a podcast host?
Are you a lesser of two Kelsey brothers?
We've been talking a little bit about each position. We started with quarterbacks, and we went into how much depth there is kind of there and why you shouldn't go early. And now we're going to go on the complete opposite side of the spectrum with the tight end, because if you don't get one in the first 5-6 rounds, you're going to be stuck with somebody who's
earlier than
everybody else. I mean, maybe it depends on how your drafts are going. I think there's 2 or 3 guys who are definitely on top of it, and then after that you have a dramatic drop. But I think there's 2 or 3 more guys after that who are still comparable in terms of production. So I'm just going to start from the top because I think everybody knows exactly where we're going here. And I want to make sure we put some time into just how ridiculous this guy is. So Travis Kelce is the obvious one of one. He's in a tier of his own. There's nobody else even in comparison to him. To put it into perspective, last year he had 316 fantasy points in standard PPR. The next highest was TJ Hawkinson with 215.
It was TJ?
Yep, he was second.
Wow.
And when he went to the Vikings, he took off, so that picked him up a lot. But
he played well at with the Lions too for a little bit there. So
TJ's a beast.
He had really good production. But think about that gap between 1 and 2, because 1 and 2 are not comparable to the guys who are 6 and below. If he's 100 over second place, you're basically starting off with a 10-point lead going into your match, and it could be significantly worse. Travis Kelce didn't even end the year hot. Jerick McKinnon took a lot of touchdowns away from him. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but Jerick McKinnon actually finished with the most touchdowns in the league because he was just scoring so much at the end.
He was balling, yeah.
Not on your running back list, by the way. Does that count?
He's not. He is not.
Just throwing that out there.
He's not. Nope.
I would agree with you. He shouldn't be on the list. He shouldn't.
It's too much of a committee there. So.
With that kind of production, though, being 100 points above the next person, I think if you look at Travis Kelce's top 3, you're completely not out of line. I think that's reasonable, and I actually think it's a smart decision. If you're looking at him with the first pick, I don't think that's foolish either. You cannot get that kind of production from any other person at this position.
You're talking about first pick of the draft, or like saying your first pick in the first round?
Draft, like no JJ, slot in Travis.
If you want Travis Kelce and you are picking first, I can promise you are not going to get him.
You're not going to get him. Right, you're right.
So you have to pick him first. It just depends on how much you want him. But I don't think that there's any other position. If you were to take CMC versus Eckler, is that a big drop? No, but if you take Travis Kelce over Hawkinson, I still think that's a very, very big difference in production. And I think that's the most important thing here is what can I replace this value with? You cannot replace Travis Kelce.
I guess what
I think that he just needs to be listed as wide receiver because that's what he is.
Yeah, I was sorry to cut you off, but just looking at the
You're good.
receiving stats for last year, it's actually crazy that he has only 18 less catches than Justin Jefferson,
Yes.
only like 30 less targets, and
I've never
then
seen that man throw a block.
and then
I've seen him throw
4
picks,
more touchdowns. That's crazy.
but I've never seen him throw a block.
It's crazy to me how and I saw something where he was talking about how he and Pat just have that chemistry. So say it's a broken play and Pat just says go do something and he just finds a way and Pat somehow knows where he's going to be, when he's going to be there. I don't know if he's like reading his body language or what. What I was going to say is I guess I'm more surprised that there really hasn't been any other team who has shifted their tight end to try and be somewhat like the Travis Kelce. I mean, it's almost like it's a completely other position. Like you're saying, put him out receiver. Why are none of these other teams even like they're not trying to mimic it at all? It seems.
Well, to your point, I think they are kind of. If you look at like Kyle Pitts in Atlanta, they're kind of trying to do that, right? Where they're having this super athletic guy who can kind of be a wide receiver.
He's a
But
good.
nothing has worked.
I just
to
don't think
nearly-
we like Atlanta doesn't have the right coach. Like what
Yeah.
what Andy Reid can do for the Chiefs, freaking
Yeah, Andy Reid would
cannot
have
do in
Kyle
Atlanta.
Pitts looking like Travis
Yeah.
Kelce.
yeah. Arthur Smith, please get him out, Atlanta.
Great
Please,
coach.
please
Have
get
you
him
seen
out.
his stash?
More than just Travis Kelce's ability.
Atrocious.
He's
Yeah.
got Mahomes. He's got Andy Reid.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
he's got
even
that's
I
built
mean,
for him.
Travis Kelce was making Alex Smith look good, and that's saying
That's true.
something. Sorry, Chiefs fans. Alex Smith was dog piss. Great guy, dog piss quarterback. But yeah, I mean, Travis Kelce was making him look good. So I don't know. I guess I'm just surprised that these teams aren't targeting their quarterbacks that much more, or
Somebody
tight ends
mute
that
this
much more.
Chiefs fan microphone.
Tim, let me ask you this because I'm curious. You're not a Chiefs fan here. Travis Kelce, where do you have him in the top tight ends all time right now?
Top tight ends. I was gonna say top Kelsey brothers, number 2. But top tight ends all
All
time.
time.
You mean 2 Super Bowl rings?
All time. Okay, I might get a little flack for this, but let me first off start by saying Gronk is not number 1 or
would
number
have
2.
one.
Okay, I think that when it's all said and done, the 2 greatest tight ends to ever play the game of football are going to both have played for the Chiefs. I
I'm
think
in
that
agreement
right
with that.
now it's still Tony G.
Agreed.
It has to be.
If Travis Kelce keeps doing what he's doing for a few more years, it's probably him. But right now, it's still Tony G. Without a doubt, I don't even think there's a discussion yet. There's a
That's
potential.
That's what made Tony
I don't
G
think there's a
so
discussion.
great is he was producing in year like 15 or whatever it was. It's
Yeah.
like
He went to
He went to
how
Atlanta and still balled.
yeah, that's what it was.
If Steven
Yeah.
Jackson doesn't drop a pass in the end zone, we move on in the playoffs. He might have got his ring. Who knows?
Yeah,
He's a
it
beast.
was
I mean,
crazy.
he's doing that with Trent Green his entire year, like
Mhm.
career basically. And Trent
Mhm.
Green's not a Hall of Fame quarterback.
I will say, could you
Like-
imagine Kelsey's numbers if he had Mahomes the entire time? Because
Do you
that,
imagine
yeah.
Tony Gonzalez numbers if he had Patrick Mahomes? injured?
okay, that's also fair.
That's kind of the big discrepancy here.
Yeah, that's very true.
Insane.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to the next people. I have 3 people who I think are kind of close. I'd say tier 2. I think you have to have Mark Andrews in there. A lot of that's just going to depend on whether Lamar Jackson's healthy. They brought in Odell Beckham, but Mark Andrews is still going to be a favorable target share.
Mark Andrews, your 2 or your 3?
I am having him. I have kind of a tier 2 right now. I would have him listed as my 2, but I have all of these 3 in the same tier. They're all going to get you around 200 points. In terms of talent, no, he would not be my second. I'd have George Kittle, but in terms of fantasy production, I think I'd put him at 2. Third, I would have TJ Hawkinson. He was the tight end 2 the second half of the season last year. There's no Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. Teams are going to be doubling Justin Jefferson consistently. Yes, you have Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne, but without Dalvin Cook, I think they're going to be throwing a lot. And I think that TJ Hawkinson built a bond with Kirk Cousins last year. I don't see his production dropping. I still think he's going to be top 4 tight end. He has the ability to be top 2. That's for sure. Fourth, And in terms of talent, I would have George Kittle probably ranked number 2, but unfortunately, blocking doesn't count for anything in fantasy. So he had 201 points last year. The one thing that worries me about George Kittle, he had 11 touchdowns last year. That's a lot for a tight end. About 5 or 6 higher than the next people on the list, other than Travis Kelce, who had 12. I don't know if that can keep up, but he's just got such a tough situation with CMC in his offense. He's got Debo still. You have an unproven Brock Purdy, Ayuk still there. And so even if he's doing his part, he may not get the production of these other guys just because he's not as big a focal point of the offense. But I still think he's right there with those guys, and he once again has the potential to be right in that same team.
But I will say, to his advantage, he is their only outside of CMC and like Debo running some sort of screen or option or reverse sweep. Kittle is their only big body for red zone threats.
That's true.
And he really
CMC is going to be scoring.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Outside of the crazy gimmick plays and all that, like if they're throwing like a regular shotgun, 4 wide, 5 wide, like George Kittle is probably who I'm hitting within the 10, 15 yard.
Yeah,
George really turned it on at the end of last year too, for several games there. And then another thing to take note of was the Mark Andrews thing. He is Lamar's guy, and I don't think that that's going to change, especially with him being healthy now. But I'm in agreement with you as far as Mark Andrews being where he is over George Kittle, because the quarterback situation there, and all the weapons that you guys just mentioned. So yeah.
I think those 4 are going to be your most important pieces. I'd say 1 tier below and kind of a league of his own. The Philadelphia tight end Dallas Goedert, he's going to be right there in terms of production. He was next on my list, and you obviously have Darren Waller as well. But he's in a very unproven situation with Daniel Jones.
How did you say his name was?
I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Goddard.
As soon as he wins the Super Bowl, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So never.
It literally won a Super Bowl like 2 years ago,
and we still don't know how to say his name. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you already forget about that?
Sleeper.
I did.
I would definitely put Zach Ertz up in that conversation.
Your team couldn't get it done the year before that.
Hold on. So is Zach Ertz still in Arizona?
Yes, I believe so.
They're gonna have to throw the football this year because they're gonna be down in damn near every game.
Yeah, but how much time does Kyler miss?
I guess they still have Hollywood Brown, I suppose.
Yeah, is he still? I don't think that they're gonna fall off as far as people think that they are.
Kyler's not gonna. He's at least missing the first 6-7 weeks of the season. That's what
I don't know. I don't see the Cardinals winning any more than 4 games, but yeah, I could see Zach Ertz as long as Zach Ertz stays healthy, because he's getting up there in age now. But he's always been a solid tight end.
Right after Dallas.
No, Darren Waller and Dallas are in the same tier, and then I'd say 1 tier below it, a sleeper pick, I think, is Zach Ertz. He had a really good start to last season. He's not going to have the competition with DeAndre Hopkins there this year. Yes, you're not going to have Kyler for the first few games, but somebody's got to catch the ball there. They're going to be throwing.
You're pretty high on that Evan Ingram guy earlier, where he's at.
Again, I like Evan Ingram, but he's just going to be a tier below. He's just going to be with the normal starters who aren't going to get you higher production. So I have a list of people here. Kyle Pitts, he is one that's always a wild card. You have no idea where he's going to get you. You could take him as a kind of a flyer, maybe around 6 through 8. But if you take him before that, I think you're just vastly overrating his production on something that's uncertain. Pat Freiermuth, he's been completely consistent. I know he has Kenny Pickett, but he's always going to get his touches. He's a great tight end. You've got Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Dalton Schultz, and Tyler Higbee. Again, all these guys are just capable starters, but I don't think they separate you from the pack. And if you're playing one of those top 5, 6 guys, you're going to be losing production if you have them.
Have you dug into any of the rookies? You got any rookies that you believe in?
That's actually what I was going to talk about. So I am very big on Dalton Kincaid, mainly just because he's in the Bills offense. He's going to be a huge receiving threat. I don't think Dawson Knox has been somebody who's going to take his position. I think they drafted him in the first round for a reason. They want him to come in and be a second option.
Is Dawson still there?
He is still there, but Kincaid's going to take over that position. He's going to have that done probably by week 1. I don't see that being an issue. And I see him being a focal point of the offense quickly. And with Josh Allen throwing the ball, he likes to spread the ball around.
Allen likes his tight ends in the red zone.
He does.
I do know that.
And I think he's just a superior talent overall, and I really see him having a breakout year. So he's going to be a late sleeper. And then another rookie out of Oakland in the second round, they took Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. And he won't wow you with his athleticism, but he's just a guy who's always in the right spot. He's always going to make a catch. He's your reliable go-to. And they don't have Darren Waller anymore, but they do have two other tight ends that they signed, OJ Howard and Austin Hooper. I see Michael Mayer as the guy who's going to take over that starting position. And I think he's really going to be a second option alongside Devontae Adams, especially if Josh Jacobs isn't there. They're going to have to throw the ball more. So really pay attention to that contract situation there. But Michael Mayer and Dalton Kincaid, two promising rookies. If you don't get one of those top 4 or 5 guys, definitely look their way late.
Did you have Cole Kmet on your list anywhere?
Yeah.
Didn't.
I would be super hard pressed to think that he doesn't have at least the target share this year after signing an insanely crazy, stupid waste of money contract of $50 million or whatever it was.
I would agree with that, but I mean,
and that's still in Chicago, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. As much as I love Justin Fields for his rushing ability in fantasy, he hasn't proven he can throw in the big leagues yet. Yeah. So
Justin Fields isn't a quarterback.
Maybe that's one of those situations where they start to, like I was saying, start to try and mimic some of the Kelsey plays. Or I thought, utilize him.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Cole Kmet came on strong at the end of the year, maybe with most of his production.
He had some good games.
I thought that maybe he did well at the end of the year, and all right, we like him. Let's pay him $50 million for 4 years.
Well, in my mind. Another thing to note with the Bears is they just signed DJ Moore as well. So I mean, he's going to be taking some of those deep threats.
It's for sure a prove it or lose it year for Fields.
Yeah.
Hey, here's some more weapons. Can't complain. We know you can run the ball and you can play make, but you're going to need to prove it that you can throw it to these guys that can catch it. So
I don't think you can debate that. Last year, Matt Nagy was bringing that team down. I think a new coach will really help them. But at the same time, I'm not sold enough on them to say you should be drafting their tight end. I think there's just better options. Maybe take him as a late, let's stash him and see how he does.
The golden years of Jay Cutler are long and gone.
Did Jay Cutler have golden years?
Dude, yes.
Well, didn't they make it the Super Bowl against the Packers? Or not the Packers? And they made it to the NFC Championship.
They beat the Colts. They beat the Colts. They beat Peyton Manning.
That was a long time. That was 2006.
I'm pretty sure the Bears were relevant.
Was it like Devin Hester days?
Yeah.
Nah, it's Brian Urlacher days.
Yeah.
That was the defense. They just beat up on Peyton. So
Peanut and Brian just going.
I think they beat him, right?
Tight ends are interesting though. I am kind of curious, about Mike Gesicki. It just seemed like there was games where he scored 2 or 3 touchdowns, and it's who the hell is this guy? And then he hits his dumbass gritty, and it's who are you? So obviously when Tua goes down, he kind of falls off. But that kind of seemed like that was his go-to, at least in the red zone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. But that's the thing with tight ends, right? You have some who are consistent production, and then you have a lot who are hit or miss.
Yeah.
And some weekends you're looking at the waiver wire and you're like, wow, that guy just dropped 20. The next week he comes in and drops 2. And so having those guys who have consistent production just gives you a level above everybody else.
I think it's definitely the most inconsistent position in football, minus Travis Kelce. But it's
David Njoku will be another one to keep an eye on.
Year in and year out, I believe in him, and he doesn't do anything.
Same.
Yeah, I mean,
you guys believe in Darren Waller at all?
Yeah, I don't believe in Daniel Jones.
I do not.
I don't believe in Daniel Jones. I
think he's their best receiver.
I agree with that.
I think Slayton's over him.
Nah.
No thanks. Darren Waller over him, but with injuries, with
he can't stay
quarterback situation, with Saquon taking a large share, I don't know. We'll see.
I think he's an end zone guy. He's a 35, 30, 35 yard from the end zone kind of a guy. He's a playmaker. He's tall as hell, and he can leap.
I mean, he did nothing last year though,
He
and
missed a lot. They
Well,
had
I think pre-injury, he wasn't great, but yes, he was injured for most of the season.
yeah, but even I mean, when he wasn't, it was like he was non-existent out there, and I don't know. It was just it was an off year for him, I guess.
Well, I mean,
But
also though, you in that offense, you have Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and Hunter Renfrow. Like they can all catch the ball really well.
yeah, but he was their top. I mean, he was the top dog there
He
for a
was
while.
before
Obviously
Devontae Adams came in.
before Devontae Adams, yeah. But I mean,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, even he was the number one guy. Like, he's a beast, and he's the number one guy as far as receiving goes in New York. So
it'll be interesting. I like I was saying, I have no trust in Daniel Jones. So yeah.
Well, I think
his contract was stupid.
I think we should go ahead and wrap this one up. I think we're coming up on an hour and a half. You know, I'm an old man. Chat, podcast, whatever. I'm an old man. Okay,
grandpappy.
I gotta go to sleep. But appreciate everyone tuning in, coming to watch the very first inaugural episode of Fade to Bias.
Yep.
Fade to Bias. By the way, my tier list was the best, and it's not even close.
What'd you say?
So, I said my tier list was the best, and it's not even close, and y'all are about to
if
see.
anything, the audience is only going to learn that you're on crack.
No.
Yeah.
Far from it.
No. I don't know. That list was. I'm probably gonna have nightmares tonight.
I don't give a shit.
Go get your melatonin, Tim.
Yeah, get your melatonin.
Dude, I took the last one yesterday. I felt so bad. I gotta go buy some more.